Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you very much for your interest in being here for the presentation. Talisman has 3 assets located in Australia. The first asset is the recently acquired Lachlan Copper Gold project over in New South Wales. We have a significant land holding in this region, and it is very conducive to cost-effective exploration because there has been very little modern exploration, but there is a lot of mineralisation in this region and some significant deposits, and I'll talk about that later. We've already identified some targets. Our first drilling generated some very good copper results, and I'll talk to you about where we're going at the moment and where we're planning to go. The Sinclair nickel mine is a historic nickel mine in a proven province, the Agnew-Wiluna Greenstone Belt. We have a processing plant and surface infrastructure. It's supported by a resource of around 16,000 tonnes of nickel at around 2.3%, which is similar to the grade of the mine. We have exploration targets, which is extensions of that mineralisation, and importantly, a really good tenement package as well, where there is potential to deliver further nickel mineralisation. The asset with the infrastructure is also a very strategic asset, and there's a lot of opportunity to create value from this asset. The Springfield Copper Gold joint venture has recently been announced that we're in a transaction with Sandfire to sell that. That will deliver us just over $72 million of cash. We will be looking to give a significant return to shareholders and then leave the rest of the balance to fund our projects going forward. So we'll be well funded going forward, and we'll be able to give a good return. We also retain upside in the project with a royalty going forwards. Quickly on the corporate snapshot, we have a very experienced board and a very experienced executive team. We've worked for majors and for juniors in Australia and around the world. Our market cap is around $55 million, which is very close to the cash that we will receive from the transaction after repaying the project debt. And we have less than 200 million shares on issue. Looking at the New South Wales Lachlan project, this is an RC rig that was turning in June this year, the first RC program that we drilled. The project is a significant land holding that we've built recently. Over last year, we spent a lot of time looking at the data and compiling the data sets and picking up the tenement package that we have here. We have over 3,000 square kilometres. It sits to the east of the Cobar region, which is mineralisation on the Rookery Fault, the main plumbing structure into the mantle. And we have the Gilmore suture that runs over our tenement package, which is the similar plumbing structure, and a lot of basically historic mineralisation. There's mines from the 1900s. It's a very, very mineralised region, but it's had very little modern exploration. There's been very, very little done in the last 20 to 30 years. There are multiple significant base and precious metal mines in the region. There is recent discoveries by Peel, which is very interesting. Very good discoveries. Encourage you to have a look at Peel. They're here. Rob's either presented or will be. And the infrastructure in the region is established, so for an exploration project, it's a very good place to be. These are our tenement packages that I talked about. We split them into the northern, central and southern region due to the size of the package that we have. We like this region because of that lack of modern exploration, means that it's very conducive to cost-effective exploration. The first stage of exploration is that we go to the areas that are geologically of interest. This is the Gilmore suture that runs down here, the main feature, and then there are a number of cross-cutting features that run through there where you get traps of mineralisation. The geologists identify that work from databases and from walking over the ground. We then, in the interesting positions of interest, we basically undertake a auger drilling campaign. It's a low-cost campaign that generates a lot of geochemical information. That proves the geological theory and then leads us in to do the RC drilling, the deeper and more expensive drilling. We've already undertaken some of these auger programs and identified a number of targets. And beyond that, when we do the RC program, we would look to follow that up with deeper RC and diamond drilling. And our first RC program that I mentioned in June has already led to us scheduling our next refined targeting deeper drilling, which will take place in around 4 or 5 weeks. Just to take you into some of the areas in this early stage project. This is the southern region of the project down here, and we're in one very localised region here, which you can see there in that red box. Now, this is where there has been a lot of historic quartz, there's quartz veining that outcrops, which is the host for the mineralisation that sits through the suture and comes up into that quartz veining. There are a number of shafts from the 1900s in this region where there have been significant copper mined. There is copper on surface, but there is very, very limited drilling. In fact, the only drilling that's really been done is in this position here, which is what we call blind calf. Now, this is where we first went into and did our first program. It was just under 1,000 metres, and we got some very good results out of that. There are also a number of other positions that you can see that are completely untested. So the drill rig will be turning on the refined targeting program in around about 4 weeks. It basically will be drilling these deeper black holes that you can see here. The shafts you can see up here are the historic shafts of the 1900s. Drilling in 2010 was done very shallow. It returned some pretty good grades, around 5%, but it was very, very shallow. It was never followed up at depth. Now, when the model that we have with these deep plumbed quartz vein hosted mineralisation is similar to Cobar, and you see these things in clusters. They run very deep and they're often very high grade. We came in and did our drilling a bit deeper, and we've got some really good grades. We've got 13 metres at 5.7% copper, 11 metres at 5% copper, and within there some really, really high grade sections, which means that there's a lot of high grade copper deep within this system, which bodes very well for the other positions that we can target in this local area. What we really like about this, though, is that we're getting a widening of strike, which you need for the economic mineralisation, and we're getting an increasing grade at depth. So we're now going to go in and have a look at depth and see if this continues. We've got EM plates that support that. The other work that we'll do will be structural mapping in that region, which then allows us to have the confidence to go and do effective RC drilling at those other target points. This is just one small part of the region. It comes down into a wider tenement package where these main structures still run through from northwest to southeast. There's lots of these cross-cutting structures where you see mineralisation typically hosted. There's been no drilling. There is shafts in the region. There's rock chips in the region that support mineralisation. And the auger rig that we have put over there in 2 programs to date has identified a number of targets that we will be drilling next year. What we're drilling at the moment is an anomaly called Noisy Ned. This just gives you an example of how that auger program I mentioned creates data in geologically interesting positions. This is the main suture. On the edge of there, we did some auger drilling. We've got a really big anomaly. It's a 1 kilometre anomaly of lead, of zinc. It's got copper and gold in it as well. And we're drilling that at the moment to see what's below that anomaly. We'll follow that up with looking at an IP anomaly that's just to the south. This is an IP anomaly from data in the 1970s, and basically it's been completely untested but has surface gold chips nearby from surface shallow drilling, so it's a very interesting position to test. So basically with this project we have a number of targets identified already to run into next year. We'll have the auger drill rig running that will corroborate the geological positions of interest we've got. We expect to have follow-up drilling from the 3 targets that we're drilling now. And we expect to be very active with news flow, with targets, with drilling for the next 12 to 18 months. And as I say, we're funded to do that. The really exciting short-term prospect will be looking at that blind calf mineralisation at depth and that high-grade copper, and to see if that continues. The other asset that we have is the Sinclair Nickel project. This was bought from Glencore for $8 million. It was a non-core asset to Glencore. We basically have the surface infrastructure. It's a significant plant, 350,000 tonnes per annum, that's operated at 440,000 tonnes per annum for 5 years. There's over $100 million of replacement capital on surface. This is some of the pictures that you can see. There's a 200-person camp, there's a runway, there's administration buildings on site, and importantly the plant. It's on care and maintenance at the moment. It's not turning, but what this allows us to do, if the nickel price moves or if we get additional nickel tonnes out of the ground from the exploration work, this gives us a very fast track to production at a very low capital intensity. It's supported by a resource. The mine was an open pit, then an underground to 400 metres below surface. So this has been mined, and then below here you can see the drilling that's been done from surface, and you get wide space drilling at the base. This is 1 kilometre, and you can see that we're getting nickel grades similar to what we've mined. And basically, the resource that we have consists of some remnants, and where the close space drilling is, it's around 16,000 tonnes at 2.3%, so that's approximately 2 years of production. And that's supported by an exploration target down here where there's wider space drilling, so we can't get a JORC resource on this without doing more expensive drilling. But basically the model continues and there are EM plates. So that provides a basis underneath this project that at the right nickel price, without any other nickel being found, has a potential to be returned to production. What we really like about this, though, is the fact that there are untested positions. Now, those untested positions, one of those examples is the Skye and Stirling lodes that plunge underneath Sinclair. They sit to the south, they plunge underneath. They've been drilled at surface by Xstrata when they held this mine and operated it. There's 1 to 1.5% nickel. At the time, in 2010, there wasn't a high enough nickel price to warrant an open pit. What they were going to do was do the open pit and then go in and drill out at depth where there's EM plates. We haven't put our capital into that at this stage because it's quite expensive, but basically untested channels of mineralisation. What we do is the lower cost exploration, where we're looking for re-evaluating the data and looking for new targets, and we think that the trend continues over to the east. This has never been drilled before. This is an interpretation from the geologists, from the models they've built. It was tested 2 months ago, and it turned up 7 metres at 3.5% and 2 at 7.5%. So very good grade nickel mineralisation, close to surface. Who knows whether this continues at depth, but if it continues at depth in the way that these trends do, it could be a game changer for Sinclair. Very, very early stages, but we can do cost-effective exploration to test that. In addition to that, what we like about this tenement is that we have 80 kilometres of strike ultramafics. Ultramafics are the packages that host the komatiite nickel. They all are within 25 kilometres of the existing infrastructure. They're all granted mining lease. So if we find nickel on here, it's a very quick return to production, and basically that is a real advantage to us. What we have found in some of the drilling that we've done, about 3 kilometres to the south of Sinclair, we basically have found some mineralisation at Delphi. You can see the grades here that we've got. They're 2 to 3% mineralisation, close to surface. It's unlikely to be big enough to be a game changer for Sinclair, but if the processing plant is operating, this is potentially a good open pit. So to wrap up with the investment case, the transaction has a shareholder vote next week. There's a lot of support for the transaction. It will provide us with the cash to return a significant amount to shareholders. We've set up to 46.5 million, which is 25 cents per share if we do go up to that number. We're currently priced at 29 cents. It will leave us with some significant cash to go into the Lachlan Fold project. We've already got targets that we're drilling right now. We've got targets that we'll be drilling next year, and we think we'll have a really good pipeline of opportunities to come in here for high-grade copper, for gold, for base metal anomalism, and it's supported by the mineralisation around in the region. Sinclair, as I mentioned, is a very regionally strategic project. It has a processing plant. There are other emerging nickel deposits nearby. Subject to the nickel price as well, it could really suddenly become very, very valuable, and it's something that we will continue to pursue and to pursue various value realisation paths, because it's a real sleeping asset at the moment, and with where the nickel price is going, there's very, very good opportunity. So that's it from me. Thank you very much. Please feel free to come and ask any questions at the booth. Tony, our GM of Geology, is here as well, so we'd welcome that opportunity. Thank you.
Dan, well done. Thanks so much.